Thanks very much, Kelly, Mario, and Lewis. So we'll start off with Kelly. It's all yours. Go.
Thank you, and thank you for everybody who's dialed in tonight. Dean has, as he said, asked me to speak for about 10 minutes about how I go about planning the swim season. And the bulk of my experience has been with youth programs. I actually started with the Masters in September of 2019, so I have yet to actually complete a season. But so I generally with the kids, you start with 20 or 30 competitive swimmers that are close in age, similar skill level and experience, and it's not like that in Masters. So Masters encompasses a broad range of ages, skills, experience, fitness, motivation, and a variety of goals as big and as varied. So this makes planning very challenging. So as I begin my master's coaching journey, I'm trying to get to know the needs and interests and goals of a very diverse audience. So I'm choosing to take a very balanced approach to the development of all energy systems and athletic abilities, exposure to all of the strokes, and at the end of a full season and based on results of swim meets and test sets, I'll adjust and refine the plan for the following season. So this is just a small list. I could probably have 50 more items on each side, the different variables with the group, and then the different goals that we might have within any swim group that shows up on the deck. So my inner athlete and coaching instincts light up like a Christmas tree when I run a test set or we head to a swim meet. And I have to constantly remind myself that the majority of the athletes in the program are there for fun, fitness, skill development, friendship, and participation. But this doesn't mean that they don't want to progress or improve. So there is no magic wand. We've all seen dedicated lane swimmers who swim continuous meters at the same pace year after year with the same stroke and no noticeable improvement. This is because many of the lane swimmers stay in a low aerobic zone where their heart rate is perhaps at 60% of their maximum. So they stay within the comfort zone, and the rewards from training are beyond this intensity level. So while it is certainly beneficial exercise to do lane swim, presumably you want more. You want to see progress in areas such as strokes and skills, physical conditioning, work tolerance, and performance. So building a seasonal training plan starts with periodizing training around key competitions. So what is periodization? It is purposeful sequencing of training units, long, medium, and short training cycles, with each unit having a particular goal to produce maximum gains in physical performance that peak during major competition. So this just gives you a glance that the macrocycle is the overarching plan. So you begin with, or where I would begin is by plotting in the key meets, and then you backload the season. And the mesocycles, so I'm going to move to the next screen here. So the macrocycles are seasonal or year-long plan, which are developed in order to reach a long-term goal. It's an overview and plots preparation, competition, and recovery phases. Mesocycles are, as we drill down in this structure, mesocycles are 4 to 6 week blocks, training blocks, and generally the body needs that long in order to have a physiological adaptation. So each mesocycle has a specifically targeted outcome, something like power, strength, or endurance, and these cycles can be adjusted and be longer or shorter depending on the importance of a particular component. Microcycles are generally week-long training periods and are more specific in terms of a work plan, so duration, intensity, work-rest ratios, etc. You also want to be plotting in and never forget to plan for rest and recovery. So periodized approach to training. A seasonal plan, macrocycle, is divided into 3 critical periods in preparation for peak performance. So you have your preparation period at the beginning of the season, your competitive period, and your transition period. This is just an overview. You can see the general training, specific training, competition, and transition, and the phases and the emphasis of the meters, load, and skill. The only thing I might say here is that I stole this off the internet. So the technique is a little bit lower than I would probably have it. I like to try and emphasize technique early in the season so that we're doing the right things right as we mean to move forward, and that technique continues to build all the way through the competition phase. So the preparation period, it's about 15 weeks, and it's divided into 3 general areas: general preparation, specific preparation, and pre-competitive. So the general preparation is about 8 weeks long, and that's when you're trying to get your general fitness back up and running after having had a break. So you have high concentrations of aerobic conditioning. So the volume, so the number of meters and the frequency of training is high, and the intensity levels are low because we're just sort of getting back up and running. And I like to have a really nice balanced mix of all the strokes. We're working on technique, so we're working our weaknesses, and there's a heavy emphasis on stroke economy. So stroke length and stroke rate. So when we talk about distance per stroke or DPS, we're doing a lot of that as we build in this preparation phase. Lots of skills, drills, baseline aerobic measures are taken at this time, and loads of kick and some flexibility. And then as we move into the specific preparation phase, which is around 5 weeks or so, we continue to build our volume each practice. We have a balanced mix of aerobic endurance, aerobic power, lactate tolerance, and sprintability, and progressively more focus on best stroke and perhaps your best events. Progression of intensity to overload by the end of the phase, and lots of refinement of skills. And then we have our pre-competitive stage where we're kind of stabilizing the quantity of work and continuing to increase intensity to competition level. So we do our specific race preparation here, some rehearsal swims in practice where we're practicing tactical strategies, starts and turns, broken swims, shots of speed, and then we want to make sure we have lots of active recovery. Then we're into approximately 13 weeks of our competitive period, and this is really dictated by what's on offer in terms of swim meets, and I know that that's something that's probably going to continue to develop under Swim Ontario, but for instance, this past season, we started in November with the semi-serious meet, and then we had in December the I Am Fast, and we went to the Wilmot Aces in, I guess that was in March. And so those are the competitions that we're grooming ourselves for the key competitions that come after. So we want to continue to have high intensity. There's a lot of stress associated with racing, although it's fun. There are physical and mental stresses, so we have to make sure that we're getting a lot of rest. And we're amping up on the technical aspects of our swim and our race plan execution. Then we enter into our key competitions, which for us would be provincials in April, and then our nationals in May. So we're going to have a dip in our work volume so that the body can recover and is a reduced quantity of work. Although we continue to do high intensity sets, we're probably doing a smaller volume of that. And we're working on our specific events that we're going to be racing. And we want to, during this competition phase, we want to make sure we're achieving the performance goals that we set at the outset of the season. And then we enter into transition period, which can be as short as 2 weeks, but can also be our off season. So I always like to think of it as the 4 R's: rest, recovery, regeneration, and review. So we want to look back when things are still fresh and take a look at our season and whether we met our goals and why or why not, and make adjustments for the following season. And we want to do some other recreational kind of activities that are low aerobic and low strength, just to have maintenance of our fitness. So periodization, this is kind of a summary. Why do it? The theory behind periodization is that training blocks of 6 weeks will yield chemical changes at the cellular level and promote physiological adaptations. Strategically alternating phases of overload and recovery limit performance decrements, which can occur through injury, overtraining, and detraining, and balanced development of all energy systems: anaerobic, alactic, anaerobic, lactic, and aerobic. Variation in training stimulus persists to yield new adaptations and progress. And this method of training allows you to target your peak performance to line up with your major competitions. So swimmers need training in all intensity zones or energy zones. While most of our races are over a minute, which is in the aerobic zone, we do use those other systems, and there are no boundaries of energy zones. So we want to be also working our anaerobic, alactic for things like your starts and your breakouts, accelerating into the walls. And even if you're a triathlete and you're wanting to get to the front of the pack at a start or around the barrel first, or to race to get into somebody's slipstream so you can have a little bit of a draft for a while, you're going to be using some of these other zones other than just the aerobic zone. So we like to make sure that we're getting exposed to all of that kind of stimulus. So the holy grail of coaching is successful periodization. It's our playbook, and it's all comes down to the correct sequencing of work, timing, volume, intensity. And it's difficult because of it needs to be tailored for a team with, as we discussed before, with diverse range of abilities, fitness, experience, etc. And we can always count also on a lot of pandemonium in a season, unforeseen circumstances, injuries, illness, personal matters, pool closures, and even pandemics. And we want to have a plan that's based on science and experience, but we want to be ready with ingenuity, adaptability, and creativity, as well as a sense of humor. So that's it.
Oh, super. we'll get into some questions, but I just thought, Mario, from your experience, any key things that you add in on your planning?
Kelly pretty much covered everything I would have put in my programming as well. I loved how the graph that she grabbed that she put in one of the presentations, how technique should be a little bit higher than she would like. I totally agree with that. And yeah, like the diversity, and especially with the pandemic now, it's a lot harder to really plan that along, but I think that summed it up all pretty well. Yeah.
Okay. Lewis, anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think Kelly, you did a great job summarizing what the microcycles, the mesocycles, and the microcycles. I really like that part of your presentation, and pretty much everything you said is very good for us to review or learn. And I think yeah, it was awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it was a good 101, 201 delivery there. That was
That's
pretty
right.
good. So
Yeah,
next
awesome,
time any of
Kelly.
you that are on this call think that, you know, what's the coach thinking? Well, the coach is thinking quite a bit, actually. And thinking about how they can make you better, not just about how much pain they can put you through. So we're going to move on to Mario. He's going to talk a little bit about the technical pieces. I believe that's what we talked about. So, and
Yeah.
you know, the technical pieces are very, very important, no matter who you are, what your goals are, and things like that. I think it adds some good value. So take it away, Mario.
Thank you, Dean. So yeah, for those who don't know me, my name is Mario. I work for the Guelph Marlin Aquatic Club, and my specialty is taking care of my swimmers' technique and to see how they develop into more efficient strokes, whether that's freestyle, backstroke, breaststroke, or butterfly. So yeah, swimming technique and skill developments, the keys to unlocking your most efficient strokes with optimal technique. Now we're living under a pandemic, obviously. And since masters took a long break after the first lockdown, I had to assess their technique and identify newly acquired bad habits or inefficiencies in each stroke. So I would like to begin with discussing the needs versus the wants when we first got back into the pool after the first lockdown. So obviously needs will be number one, technique reinforcement. I had to look at, like I said before, if there's any new bad habits or things that are not feeling right on our first practice back. And yeah, compared to that, it's the ones, you know, not knowing when we're gonna get back in the pool, like not knowing if we're gonna go into a second lockdown, which we are at the moment, unfortunately. Most masters just want to come in, get the meters in, and just keep your head in the water, right? They wanted to get those pre-COVID goal times. They wanted those pre-COVID program practices. But it was pretty hard because no one knew how long we were going to be lasting in the pool. So I had to make a decision whether prioritizing, you know, a serious programming like Kelly just demonstrated, which was beautiful. Like that's what a whole season should look like. But I wanted to focus on really getting my masters mobilized as best as it could be and really prioritizing their technique in all four strokes. And obviously, I'm starting with freestyle first. Because it's, you know, it's your standard stroke to be effective, straight to the point, high volume distance, sets that all of you love to do. And since the majority of masters also are involved in triathlon and cross training disciplines, I knew I had to make sure, you know, that their main stroke was taken care of first. Once technique reinforcement was out of the way, we had to work back to optimal swimming mobility and range of motion. That's direct activation before getting in the pool and drills after getting into the pool. After that, rebuilding swimming endurance base and prehab exercises for after practice, especially after practice number one. It was very important to do that because your body, you know, water is the, excuse me, natural struggle in the world. Like, when was the last time, like during the lockdown, that you had to hold your breath before you would take, I don't know, like 3 steps, right? There's a lot of things that we take for granted in swimming that we kind of really have to rebuild after a lockdown. So as mentioned before, activation, I'm a huge fan of really getting those smaller muscle groups nice and ready for whatever set we're about to tackle. And like I said before, freestyle was my priority at the beginning. So starting with some examples like scarecrows, really getting those shoulders warmed up. For freestyle, bird dogs, engaging your core, your full extension in that stroke, and also in your legs. I love those. And inchworms, another core reinforcement movement, and some resistance for those shoulders so they can handle the pull and the engagement of your extension and finish. Next one would be backstroke. Again, it's like the other side of the card as freestyle. I'd like to start with thread the needle just to get that T-spine mobility nice and mobile. Dead bugs, another core reinforcement exercise that you can do. And banded pull aparts really engages those back muscles that we need for backstroke. Breaststroke, we're getting more into the complex movements in swimming, right? There's a lot of coordination, rhythmical movements that go into breaststroke and timing. What I like to do for activation is fire hydrants. And I have a guy there demonstrating those, right? We got to take care of that groin, your hamstrings. Then we have glute bridges to really activate those glutes, the low back, and lateral lunges, again, because our legs take a big hit from breaststroke because your main driver for your glide and the propulsion that you create in your stroke. And finally, butterfly, very complex, very fatiguing stroke. And that's why I'm going to talk about it last. Tiger stretch, which is the woman right now, she's demonstrating it, right? That mobility point is really hard to reach. Not everybody can do that. So it's really important to get that dynamic stretch through the tiger stretch, right? Because that is the priority in the catch for your fly. Hollow body rocks. That's very similar to dead bugs. I can do a quick demonstration if you need me to. But that is another great core engagement movement that will be very useful for your dolphin kick and that rhythm inside the fly. And superhumans, right? From all that flexion and relaxation that happens in your lower back, which is very much needed in your butterfly. So now I would like to get into more stroke specific drills and things that, you know, like I said before, you might not feel the same feel in your stroke, or there's little things that don't feel right coming back from a long break. So if you encounter issues in your breathing, I would suggest personally work with smaller distances, trying to maintain optimal bilateral patterns. For example, hypoxic 25s, whether that's holding your breath 10 seconds before you push off and then taking off into your streamlined dolphin kick, your breakout, and then come out 3 strokes later. Or 3, 5, 7 strokes before each breath. And then once you get those done, those bilateral patterns should feel a lot easier and smoother to really control through longer distances. This is what I like to prime my swimmers with if we're coming to, 200s and up. And I'm really looking for good, efficient strokes. Range of motion, work on your body positions. Side kicks, just like the lady in the pool in the picture is demonstrating right now. That's a great body position for that catch, the pull, and the finish. So side kicks, 6-kick switch, underwater recoveries, and you're more than welcome to equip a snorkel and fins if needed, especially when you really need to isolate those movements that you struggle with, especially if it's your stroke or your hips, whatever is your main driver, whether it's your shoulders or your hips, really good to use some equipment and isolate those movements. And tempo, right? I feel like that's one of the things that's gonna, I skipped a rhythm. Rhythm, try to isolate upper or lower body, right? Work with paddles or fins to strengthen that catch and propulsion feeling. Again, we got to take very little steps back to where we were in order to get the full benefit of your practice, right? Tempo, like I was going to say a second ago, this skill might take the biggest hit from the long break that we had to take. So grabbing a tempo trainer, working on building sets, and tweaking your freestyle to speed up your recovery or increase your kick rate. For example, straight arm freestyle is a big winner when it comes to sprinting 25s or 50s freestyle. You can try 450s descending 1 to 4 just to get a good feeling back into that, okay, I gotta go faster. Try getting faster every 3 to 4 strokes, and get your speed back, get your tempo back. And then 25s kick sprint, right? Like Kelly said in her last presentation, lots of kick. It's really important to just get that power back, explosiveness back into your strokes. Backstroke. So if you encounter issues in your range of motion and body position, drills, and more drills. Sidekick, again, another one of your best friends for your range of motion and body positions. If you cannot achieve that in a drill, then how can we expect to achieve it during your full stroke? You got to break down the stroke in order to get, that super efficient backstroke. I'm going to take a off example here. Like cars, like blueprints don't look like cars, right? Like when you have a blueprint, that's what you need to put together to really get that end product, which is the full car. You are that sports car. You got to work on your fundamentals first in order for that full stroke to feel nice and efficient. If you're having issues with your catch, focus on your main driver, hips or shoulders, right? Single arms drills will be your best friend. For example, IL switch, and 3 strokes on the right, 3 strokes on the left, and 3 full strokes, just to get a good feel of what your twisting should feel like through backstroke. And tempo, again, similar to freestyle. Grab a tempo trainer, work on building sets, tweak your backstroke to speed up your recovery or increase your kick rate. Breaststroke. This is my favorite one. I was a breaststroker once. Very, very complex, like I mentioned before. And issues. Number 1 would be glide. I know sometimes we don't have the patience to stay in a full glide because there's something lacking. It's either pull power, kick power, or there's no hip engagement in that breaststroke. So what I would suggest is work on your hips, knees, shins, and feet position. Especially, I know breaststroke is a very mobility demanding stroke, right? Especially in those like in that lower body. So find your best angles to find that max propulsion. So some examples of those drills would be heel toe taps or vertical kicking, because in vertical kicking, your neutral body, right? All you need to do is just focus on that kick, make sure you finish all the way down. Now, there's a term that we call spinning, where like you're trying to go as fast as you can in your breaststroke, but you're not getting anywhere. So you're spinning in place. Make sure you prioritize your glide and kick power and assess how you're positioned through your pull. Right? Because you might be cutting through the water instead of actually grabbing that water and getting over that wave. What I would suggest is building patience through your 2 kicks, 1 pull drill. That's I love that drill because it really shows everybody how far they can get through a single glide. And then they surprise themselves. Oh, why didn't I do this before? Rhythm. Hip drive is crucial for this, but usually hard to engage due to, again, lack of mobility or stiffness. Right? Execute breaststroke with dolphin kick and fully activate your hip drive through your breaststroke. So even if you need to pop some fins on and really get that core engaged and that hip drive through your breaststroke, I would suggest fins would be an awesome tool to really get that hip drive. Another example for a drill is 2 breaststroke kicks and 1 dolphin kick. And I already wrote there, grab fins if needed. And catch, very important. Start small. For example, mini pull will really get you used to utilizing your lats instead of relying on your wrists and doing the pancake flopping breaststroke, right? Really engage that whole back and shoot yourself forward through the mini pull. It's your best starter to like get a better feel of your breaststroke. And then you can work your way up to your optimal pull. And another skull I love and drill that I love in breaststroke is Windshield Wiper. Okay, it really gets that forearm in position for you to get a good feel of what that full stroke should feel like. And remember, a 50 breaststroke compared to a 200 breaststroke won't look the same. So you got to remember those things. Remember your distance, what you prefer, and how you can work on it. Lastly, butterfly. If you encounter issues with range of motion or body position, work on your sculling and single arm fly. Position your hands where it matters the most. For example, 2 strokes on the right, 2 strokes on the left, and 2 full strokes. Another drill would be 1 stroke, 6 kicks, and a skull would be your Y skull, right? Really gives you a nice feel for that initial catch and pull in your fly. If you're feeling weak in your pull, optimize your pull without the fatigue. So focus on your elbow position, isolate those arms, right? Underwater recovery fly would be a great tool for that. You can take your time with your pull, position your elbows properly, and pull down. And if you have those mini paddles, you can equip them to help enhance that pull feel. Lastly, if you feel like your kick is weak, work on your core strength and hip mobility. Neutral body dolphin kick helps a lot with this. Streamlined dolphin kick on your back, always another great set to work on if your dolphin kick is lacking in your butterfly. And again, vertical kicking, just like in breaststroke. And disco kick, which is the kick where you go in 360 degrees the whole time. It really gives you great body awareness and just harnessing your body to move consistently through 360 degrees. And that is it, everybody. That is my take on how you can prioritize what needs to get done, especially after a long break.
That was good.
So, yeah,
That was
I
really
hope
good.
it was clear.
Very good, Mario.
Thank you, Dean.
I'm just thinking that, Katie, I think we have another couple webinars. Once we get people back in the water, Mario's going to be able to give us some video clips of whatever those some of those dryland exercises, the inchworm and things like that, the ladybugs or whatever. Very creative, very good.
Thank you.
And but definitely, it would be great if we, especially when we get our new website up and running, that we could create a bit of a go-to place with people offering some of those short video snippets. So it's difficult to capture everything at once, but you did a good job. Kelly,
Thank you.
when you emphasized technique in your piece, anything that would stick out, a key thought?
Well, I thought he did a very good job. And I actually picked up a few new drills and new dryland items that we can use. So that's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
I like the idea of drills that are meaningful and lead into building characteristics into your stroke. So we use those a lot, and I think that it's a really great way of developing control and greater awareness of what you're doing. So most people don't like doing the drills, and that's because they're really difficult to do well. So it is a hard thing to sell sometimes, but I think it really is very beneficial. One of the things that I was thinking about as you were talking was that I like to use early in the season is the golf set where you do stroke count and time, and you add those together and you try and have a low score and find that balance between speed and efficiency. And the swimmers have a lot of fun with that, and I think it kind of drives home the maximum efficiency of stroke, and it's a lot of fun. So that's something that I would use as well with respect to sport. With respect to each of the individual strokes, is trying to have a golf score on each of those that is personal to the swimmer and that they can try and improve upon.
Yeah,
Super.
for sure.
Lewis, any thoughts on technique before we get to the heart of the matter, training sets?
Absolutely. No, I think, Mary, you did an amazing job explaining us the importance of core body. As I cannot stop telling my swimmers the importance of core body. It's so important. And if you can, if you can exemplify us maybe in a later video of all the drills that you practice with your swimmers, because every coach also has different names for like what you call, all those names that you listed on those for those 4 different strokes, core body on the floor. And I would like to add the importance also of flexibility, because if you don't have that flexibility and that core body strength, it's going to be very difficult to manage those drills in the water. Like you said, to break down the stroke and to be good at it, you need to break it into drills. But if you cannot drill properly, it's because you're probably going to lack in that flexibility. Flexibility in core body in swimming, it's so important, especially in the joints, shoulders and ankles, but also core body flexibility, larger muscles flexibility, so important. And obviously the eternal debate, when do we put technique into practices? At the beginning of the sessions, at the beginning of the season, and you're even fighting with swimmers on technique. Some others want demand too much technique, and then when we do, it's such a sometimes hot topic on deck, but it requires everybody to come to the middle and try to figure out a way to make you better, right? But yeah, that was awesome.
That's when those
Thank you, Luis.
soft coaching skills, Lewis, come to hand, right?
Exactly. That's right.
Make it their idea. All right, Lewis,
Right.
Here we go. Let's see some of these benchmarks and these training sets.
Yes. I am excited. I
know your swimmers are very excited when it comes to those. I know. I had them tell me that.
I know. So thanks again, Dean, for having me. And I'm very, very happy to be part of this initiative. It's very important for swimming in every sport, but in swimming especially, because the more we share, the better we get. And that's for sure. So I'm talking about key sets, benchmark sets, and cycling. So key sets are the sets that will prepare in a very specific way towards racing and or achieving a goal. Some coaches like to call these type of sets goal sets, or there are other terms too. And some key sets will prepare you to a more difficult key set. And you have those best average sets or broken distance sets, dive sets, all kinds of sets, kick sets, even drill sets or step sets. There's so many, right? I just listed a few. A benchmark set, though, is basically a key set, but now you're recording and you're putting the date, the time, the conditions, what are you doing? And those are also a type of key set, but they're setting a record. They're setting a time in place and how your fitness in the water is at that particular moment. And obviously cycling is the amount of workouts like Kelly was mentioning. There's all kinds of cycling. There's a microcycle. There's also smaller cycles. They're called mesocycles. And there's microcycles. They're all part of a cycling idea in the sport of swimming. And there are amount of workouts in a period of time that are considered a part of a larger group and that will end up in a major event. Typically a championship meet. Some people don't like to compete, but you could maybe do a time trial. You could do a benchmark set at the end of the season that maybe the swimmer will be preparing for. You can name it whatever, but most people in the competitive world will be a championship meet, right? So at EOMAC, just to give you a little bit of the context, I've been coaching for almost now, closing into my 6th year of coaching at EOMAC. Obviously, it has a long-standing tradition of competitive master swimming. In 2015, I stepped as a coach. I quit my job as a coach, age group coach in eSwim, and took the job at EOMAC. Since then, I've been experimenting with key sets and benchmark sets in cycling, with a goal to give immediate feedback to the swimmer about their current status of their fitness level in the water, like I was just saying. At EOMAC, we typically have 4 practices per week, and each practice is 1.5 hours long. So obviously every program will have completely different scenarios. Mostly in competitive swimming, you have 8 to 10 sessions a week. So it's very standard for high performance swimming, but in masters, it could vary. Sometimes I have swimmers that just come twice a week, but that's all they can do. So technically their program is twice a week, or some others do perfect attendance, very rare. But most swimmers at EOMAC will do between 2 to 3 practices a week. And that's basically what they are doing. That's what they can handle. So basically that's their cycle, their microcycle. I run weekly cycles that increase just gradually in intensity and distance over the period of time, over the course of the year, before resetting the program, right? after the end of the microcycle. Given our circumstances of having 8 lanes at the Olympium, which is the typical pool that we use, but sometimes we have 6, but most of the times we have 8, I am able to divide the team into 4 groups according to swimming abilities. And this is where it's important to have a benchmark, because then you can draw some kind of lines, even though some swimmers are not a fan of them. But anyways, here's an example of the cycle. And obviously on Mondays, we swim pretty late. And that's the time for me to do some distance sets, low, mid, high aerobic, some threshold sets. Very rare we time. And if we time, it's just at the end of the aerobic intensity set, like the high intensity aerobic set. But we don't do dive sets, very rarely, only if we're taping. And because it's late at night, I have a little more space in the lanes. There's less swimmers coming, about 30. So maybe I get 3 or 4 per lane. I can do 400s. I can do sometimes even 1,000 for time. And there's not many people passing or bothering each other. So that's good. And on Wednesdays, I do sprints. At the beginning, we'll just do any kinds of sprints, but then later on, we get more specialized on whatever we're focusing on, whether you're a breaststroker, this is where you do your broken sets or your dive sets. If you're an IMer, you also do all kinds of IM work for specific distance, and we incorporate a lot of kicking here too, which is, again, not a big fan of a lot of masters swimmers. And then on Fridays, I typically do a low mid aerobic set or an IM set. Sometimes I mix strokes there, and to make it fun, because it's also Friday night. Let's not forget, most of master swimmers as well, they have a completely different life side of this one, right? So they come tired. They're probably all just trying to burn some energy at the end of the week. So I got to make it sometimes a little bit fun, and it works out well. I get a normal attendance of about 30 to 40 swimmers, which is a pretty good number. And then on Sunday, depending on what kind of week it is, sometimes we swim really early. And when that happens, we just go very low, focus on technique. And again, I mix it up with some IM, low intensity, mid intensity aerobic, and the occasional sprints if it's a little bit close to racing time. We do a lot of fin sets there. And it's fun always to go. When we move to the patio pool, which is at 25 yards, many times we do just pretend to break world records, right, with fins. So let's see if you can go 49 on 100 freestyle, or 48. I got swimmers that can go 46, 47 on 100 yards with fins. Like, that's pretty fun to watch and to experience, right? So we make it a little exciting for them. So an example of a typical workout on Monday. Like I said, I have 4 groups. So you got the 4 workout 1, 2, 3, and 4. And number 4 will be the guys that do the bit most, and they can swim about, just to get an idea, this workout right here has about a 130 to 140 per 100 meters pace. That's just like the send-off pace, like you see here. Sometimes even we'll push you a little harder to 120s. We normally don't go below that, maybe 115s, very rarely. And then workout 3, just basically it's a breakdown from what I took from workout 4, and just a little bit less, with obviously more rest. So the pace times go maybe 150 to 2 minutes on a typical freestyle set. Then workout 2, maybe 215 to 220, and then workout 1 will be like a 230 per 100 meter pace. Sometimes 245, depending on the population. So that's kind of like a Monday night. Then on a Wednesday, we'll do again our main lactate producer. That's kind of like the focus basically for the whole week for those big sprinters that we have on the team, but also even the people in the lower lanes, they get up on the blocks and race whenever it's time for it. And it's worked out to be a very good, again, typical key set here of how their fitness is at a certain point of the season. We do a preparation set always before the main set. That includes all kinds of stuff. In this case, I put kick, Some sprints, just not the whole 25, just a little bit before, so they can get ready to the 1250s for time, basically, right? On a Friday night, again, you go something generic, a little more less intensity, mid intensity, mix it up, a little bit of IM, mixed strokes, and then at the end of the session, we'll do a little low aerobic. You go early, you swim fast, you go home early. It's Friday night. Go grab a beer when you can. Not right now, right? But it's always, you know, a little variation depending also if we're swimming really late at night on Fridays, and on a Sunday, depending again what time of the morning it is, we'll change it up. But sometimes I put a pull set at the end. Maybe it could be a fin set, and on this day we did a breaststroke set, where breaststrokers will see it. And again, my swimmers will know this at least a week in advance. So they will see the workouts. They'll say, oh, yes, there's a breaststroke. And the backstrokers are going to say, oh, no, I'm not going to get up at 6 a.m. to do a breaststroke set. No way. So then maybe they'll just come later. So it's important that also, well, for my swimmers, they got used to it now. They see this ahead, and then they make a decision. That's good. It's an informed decision of what they're looking for on that day, right? So again, a benchmark set. So this is my traditional test set. I run it twice a year, and I do it one in November, short course season, and then one just before the big meets in the spring and summer. So around March, just before provincials, and we do 6 100s free. Everybody goes on 3 minutes, and we split. Like I have a set of rules, as you can see. I don't allow more than 3 per lane. Everybody goes 10 seconds apart, and I split the whole team into 2 flights. So everybody has a timer, right? So everybody, like I said, you have to be recording every single 100, and then I make an average, and then I'll post it for them to see, right? So I have the date, I have the average of or the time on each 100, and then I do the average. Very easy on Excel sheet, and then I'll just sort them out by speed, and then I have a comments line that I'll show you on the next slide. I have a comments line, and then I'll put whatever comment is required. But yeah, so I do a quick warm up. It's about 1,000, maybe a 1,200. Obviously, some sprints in there, descend to pace, and then you go for it. This is a pretty exhausting set. My swimmers can probably testify, but it is it builds a lot of lactate real quick. And the thing is that you can't swim down, so you have to sit on the wall. Some of them sometimes they do like a half pull there, half pull back. I turn the blind eye, but they shouldn't be doing it. They should be managing that pain while they're sitting waiting for the next 100, because some of them will start like a minute or minute. Even when you do in a minute and 20 seconds, and it's a very high intensity, 140, maybe only the first 100 will feel like, oh, I have enough rest. After the second one, you're going to feel like that minute and 40 is gone. You don't have enough rest to recover, and that's the whole point. It's very typical to see the beginners or the people that have never done this. They will just go so hard the first couple, and then they will completely die in the last 3 or 4. And then the next time they'll do it, they'll get better at it, and that's the whole point. And that's what you do a best average, right? You're recording every single one. So again, here's an example of my results. This is I call this the recorded times in history of EOMAX since I took over. So as you can see, it's February 2016. There's probably some in 2015 or November. That would have been my first one, and you got 100, 200, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and then the average, and then you just sort them out. And Excel will do that work for you, and you just put the date, their name, and then on the comments, as you can see, not many people, because everybody pretty much does what they need to do is freestyle, but sometimes somebody does, let's say 5 only. And now here's the tricky part, and I'm very a little stat. I like stats. It's I always loved it since I became a swimmer. So my rule is that if they started the 100, then they get to basically get a DNF, because a DNF is different than DNS. right? DNS is that they didn't start the 100. If he didn't start at the 100, he will be at the bottom of this of the list at the very end, because the DNS is basically 5 100s. It's a completely different set. This is a 6 100s. Now he probably got a cramp, or he just simply maybe miss a turn and yeah, like a cramp or hurt something. But he started that 100, so that's why I put him in the average. He made it a temp, but there's some people that are actually faster, that maybe they should have been a little ahead, and they went all the way to the bottom, and that's because maybe I deleted them. I don't know where they went. There was a few occasions where I had a couple people that joined, and then they did one on, one off, one on, one off. Those people will go all the way to the bottom because they did a completely different set. So that's something to honor, the people that do the set right, compared to the people that don't do the set right. You have to make sure that you take that into consideration. That's just my opinion, obviously. But yeah, in the comments you can also add, let's say this person did 1 breaststroke, so I put 5 free, 1 breast. And sometimes you can put a person did with fins. I had a few that did that, or pull. They were the pull boy. You can put it there. Ideally you want them to swim, but again, you should put a row for just comments, in case that you are thinking of doing that with your swimmers. So if you want to ask your coach to maybe start recording, see how it goes in the next 3 or 4 years. And it's great to revisit this list, like I said, and check, for instance, Colin went to New Zealand. He hasn't come back. I wonder if one day he'll come back and maybe he can go under a minute. I see Cindy's there a few times, Al, and a bunch of other swimmers that are, well, pretty fast swimmers. But yeah, that's it, Dean. I think that's pretty much what I had to explain to everyone. And I hope, I think my last one is have fun in the water.
Thanks, Luis. No, that was really good. I was hoping I could see. I've been only able to see Charlie on the screen of the Etobicoke swimmers. I wanted to see their faces when you started to show that 6 100.
Yeah, not fair.
That's right. They were not. I heard from them that they were not going to be too keen for me to show just the snapshot, right? I didn't really show
Yeah. You exposed them. It was wonderful. That was
know.
really good. Anyways, Kelly, what do you have some standard sets that you like, similar to that, like measurement ones that you'd repeat or anything like that?
I'm still experimenting, and I'm glad that that Luis used the word experimenting at one point, because this is a fairly new territory for me. But I like to do best average sets. I like to do similar sets, 6 100s. I generally give a little bit more rest, but maybe I'm being far too generous. So I like that set. I like showing it as a best average. 4 50s on a long rest as a best average. I like. I have used the timed 30-minute swim 3 or 4 times a season with age groups. I'd like to probably scale that back a little bit and use that for an aerobic endurance kind of measure. But I think that swimmers love data. I think they love it when it's personal. So I think that doing benchmark sets and collecting data and then making it available for swimmers to see if they're making progress is fantastic. And Luis's enthusiasm is infectious, and I can see that he looks like he really enjoys that part of things. And
it's what I live for.
I know, like I feel you. Yeah, I agree. I think it's awesome. I know that the swimmers sometimes, swimmers don't really change, like the same kind of anxiousness about doing a test like that you see with the adult swimmers, and it's because they care and they want to improve, and this is their opportunity, their forum to do that. And Swim Ontario has created some opportunities for us with I guess it was Swim Again Challenge and these types of things. And I'm trying to incorporate those opportunities into our training as well, so that there's lots of chances to, you know, to have personal progression. So that was great. I enjoyed that. Thank you.
All right. Mario, beyond the technique, what kind of standard sets or test sets do you do? Anything of note?
Yeah, so this year, just like Kelly just said, we were guiding ourselves through this that's Swimming Canada Challenge. And aside from those, we did swimathon, and most masters finished their 5K within the hour and a half. So that was awesome. We also did a 200 kick. We did a 300 IM. GMAC prides themselves in being IM based club. So a 300 IM is just spicy enough for them to have some fun with it. And we also did a 475s IM as well as a benchmark. Yeah, they seem to have fun. They loved it.
Yeah. Good. I think we're almost at a point of questions, and we had one come in when we did the registration, and it was sort of a multiple type one where any advice around the swimmer athlete who might be coming to 2 masters practices but has an opportunity to do some training on their own. How best can they, you know, I think the question was around how can they work on their one stroke that they're really looking forward to, and then in that case, breaststroke. Any thoughts on recommendations when the swimmer goes for their own lane swim? What things should they think about? And it doesn't have to be stroke specific, but thoughts when they're on their own.
I would say stroke economy, distance per stroke, and you know, if you're doing a stroke count for a 25, paying attention to what your time is in relation to that stroke count, and then maybe you know, experimenting a little bit with that to see what stroke rate is getting you the fastest speed, maybe over 25 meters. So a little bit of experimentation. I guess the other thing is to do some research. There's so much available out there, and maybe even connecting with coaches from master's swimming programs and asking questions, and maybe getting a little bit of education on both sides as we try to work it out together.
Okay, Mario?
Yeah, I would suggest prime yourselves. Like if you have a main set in mind already prepped for you, make sure you prime yourself well through like your warm up, your drills, so that, like I mentioned before in my presentation, like you want to tackle that main set or the big challenge with the most efficiency that you can bring to the table, right? So that's making sure, like Kelly just said, like distance per strokes, also it's also an amazing tool to get yourself the best stroke rate into the fastest time. So yeah, I would just say take care of that heart rate during your warm-up, so that your body doesn't go into like, oh, what are we going fast now? Like in the main set, make sure you tackle warm-up and your drills before getting into that main set.
Okay. Lewis?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all depends on the type of swimmer that person is. But if you ask me if it's a backstroker, right away I will tell him just do everything back. But if it's a breaststroke or butterfly, it's a completely different ball game. And yeah, you focus on perfecting that technique and do a lot of sprints on your own leisure time. And you also gotta remember, you're already attending a workout where you're only focusing on that stroke. There's only so much extra you can do to get better. You might as well work on the general preparation, aerobic, get your fitness in a better level. Like again, it's all very specific. It all varies on the case. So if that person is a backstroker, like I said, I will just do all the pulls and do in backstroke. Get really good at pulling on your back. Backstrokers are very well known for being basically just behind the freestylers on all the sets doing backstroke, but you can't do that on breaststroke and butterfly. It's impossible. So depending on what it is, right?
Perfect. Mario, you're going to demonstrate something for Jack, I think.
Yeah, so a hollow body rock.
The hollow body rock. Here we go.
Yeah, So you want to position yourself in a streamlined position. Well, you can start with your dead bug or your hollow body position. You want to extend your legs, your arms, and you rock back and forth.
Super. There we go.
Your legs
All right, Jack. That's just going to get you under
for
30
some
seconds.
down momentum, but keep your core engaged. You want like the part of your round, you want to keep it round, low back like this. So you break the hollow position, right? You want to stay in that kind of like a bowl position. You rock back and forth.
Okay. Good. Well, you came prepared. You got the shorts on. You got the space and everything.
Am I
That's pretty-
frozen?
You're frozen.
Yes,
Yeah,
you are.
you're. I'm going to tell you, you're going to be pretty awesome. Your abs are going to be pretty awesome after holding it for that long. I think there was another question that came in from Andy regarding just the percentage of kick. What do you have any rules around the percentage of kick that you would do in a session, or maybe a week, or how much is it of intensity? How much of it is it general?
And
I know
just to
that-
add to that, Dean, I was actually curious about how much you use fins versus non-fins.
Okay. Who wants to take?
Sorry,
a
guys,
stab
I'm
at
back.
that?
That was for Kelly because she had I
Kelly?
made that
Okay.
note during her presentation.
Well, that's a great question. My members love their fins, so
That's why I asked it.
it's a matter of trying to peel them off of them half of the time. And we now have a new word, which is fin optional, because a lot of the times people are opting for fins even though they haven't been prescribed. So, you know, like right now during COVID, we have a lot of people in a lane because we're in a double lane format. Before we locked down, we were still 8 per double lane in some cases. And so, you know, they're a tool to sort of keep the flow going and to keep the physical distancing. So we will use them for those kind of things. Or for people who just really, you know, if we have a kick set and they're not going to be able to, you know, stay with the pack, so to speak, and be part of the set or the test, then we'll put them on. I don't like to use them all the time, but I do think they're good for allowing someone to feel the kick from the hip rather than from the knee, and to increase range of motion. So I do use them. We usually have Fin Friday, which preceded my history with the club. So Fin Friday, we always have a concentration of fin work on that day just to keep everybody happy.
Well, Kelly, I swim and I coach, and I'm from an era where we actually I spent a lot of time trying to convince my swimmers, both masters and age group, you can actually do kick sets without fins. It's actually possible.
Yeah, and the challenges at the beginning of the year with Swim Ontario, the 400 kick, you should have seen the eye rolls when we brought that out, and it was good though. You know, people did it, and I think they realized that, you know, they have more propulsion more propulsion with their legs than they believe they do.
Any other comments, Mario or Lewis, on that? Any additions?
Go ahead, Mario.
Go ahead, Mario.
Sorry, I think I missed the question. Can you guys hear me?
Well, yeah, just about kick, either a percentage or balance between fins and no fins.
Yeah,
Any thoughts on that?
from my experience with fins and no fins, it depends on the swimmer as well, right? Some people, like as soon as you put fins on them, they can just take off like a rocket. So I generally try for them to get that proper flexion in their foot before adding fins, but also sometimes fins work to force yourself into that flexion of the foot, which again can be useful. But sometimes, like if they don't want to work on that flexion, and they just want to put fins on just because they know they can go faster and make better pace times like that, then I try to like get them away from that. But once they achieve that, then yeah, put fins on, get faster, for sure.
Okay, Lewis?
Yeah, no, kick is so important. It's the 5th stroke, they call it, underwater kick. well, underwater is kick, except for breaststroke. But yeah, we do it. It's for me, it's always been a convincing work to tell my students, come on, you got to do some more kick. Come on, let's. Every time I do it, it's just like, oh, come on, more kick, no more kick, please, no. And they beg me not to get for. And again, it goes back to your lack of ankle flexibility. But if you work on that ankle flexibility every day before getting in the water, you're gonna get better at kick, and you're actually gonna start enjoying kick sets. And it's just changing that little mindset. Oh, why don't you like kick? Maybe let's start exploring what's going on with your ankles and how is it that you're not feeling the water with your feet, right? In whatever position you're doing, whether it's backstroke, butterfly, or breaststroke, or freestyle. And regarding fins, it's one of those things that you're trying to convince your swimmers not to use them, overusing them, because you're not injuring yourself or having the risk to injure. We do fin sets at least once a week, and no more than, depending for the group, maybe 600 to 1,000, up to maybe 1,500. Like I said, once a week. Sometimes we do sprints with fins. It's just to have fun and work on the positioning of the body, the right positioning of the body. Because when you're going fast with that easy help of the fins, you're actually forcing your body to find the right positions to reduce the drag, right? But yep, that's what we do.
Okay. Is there any other questions out there that yeah, Charlie.
Louis, someone asked the question, what does your short form REMO mean?
Yeah, no, it was answered by Carla. It's reverse IM order.
Yes.
Yeah, again, coaches have all kinds of terms. So yeah, everybody has their own unique way of spelling.
I knew where Andy was coming from. That was my generation of learning to swim and all that was MI.
Yeah,
just
yes.
reverse IM.
MI, that's right.
Remo sounds more fun though.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
A question for Louis. Louis, I loved your stat keeping on your benchmark set. 6/100s on 3 minutes. They're cranking them out.
Thank you.
But those are pretty accurate times. Do you have an army of timers, or is there a timer doing each?
Like I said, Andy, we split the team into two. So actually, only half of the team that attended that day gets to swim at one time. And every swimmer has to partner with another swimmer that is outside watching them. Because yeah, you're right. I have another coach, or maybe even two coaches assisting me, and I can't record all of them. It's impossible. It will be absolutely a disaster.
Yeah.
So what I do is I have people with clipboards, and I remind them to dry off, because obviously the water and paper, they'd just be a disaster too. They dry off very well, and then the person that is recording the times for a specific swimmer will go to the person that is recording the time on the sheet, and we'll tell them this swimmer did this on that 100. And then at the end of the day, I'll take home all those sheets, and I'll just, at my own leisure time, I'll type it in the spreadsheet, and they do the math, the thing.
Are you able to throw that on your website so they can see it, or is there a privacy issue there? Or how do you?
I'll have to bring it up to the board. I have no problem. That's actually something like I posted on every time we have the sets, I post the sheets on our tack board at the Olympium. They're for everybody to see. And I've seen it whenever we do before meets and we're hosting a meet and people go and check, what was that? Like there's some interest because it's fun. It's history. At the end of the day, it's just like keeping world records. That's what swimming is all about. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having Olympics. Yeah, no, I don't think there's an issue, but again, it's not my decision. Charlie would probably, you're a member of the board. Charlie, what would you say?
Oh, I don't think we have too many secrets.
Okay, there you go. There's your answer. Yeah, no, our website was revamped just before the lockdown, so I don't know if it used to be different. We'll have to create like a link or something.
Any other questions?
Yeah, it's Henry. I sent this in a chat, but I don't know if people are looking at the chats. So it's to Kelly, and actually opening it up to any of the coaches or people who are listening. I think those of us who swum for a while have lived with these 3 periods of periodization that we've talked about: the competition, the preparation, and the transition. And I liked the presentation. It just kind of framed things nicely, and you realize how complementary these three things are. But we don't have the competition part now, right? Like when you have the periodization and you're doing one after the other in sequence, they sort of feed off each other. You learn from each one, but we don't have the competition. So I guess my question is, what can we do now without competition? Are there things we can do in lieu of competition where we can sort of gauge where we're at so that we can go back to our next preparedness period? So if you're working in 4 to 6 week cycles, right? How do you test things? Anyways, I'm just opening that up if people have had thoughts on that at all.
I was running the 400. Well, there were interruptions, but I decided to focus more on the 400. I ran just a 400 times swim a number of times. So that was one of the measurements. I think people need something to chase and something to bring meaning to their training, like you're saying. And in the absence of competition, you have to create opportunities for people to test themselves.
Yeah.
And I think any time that you bring out a whiteboard marker or a book or whatever way you're recording that data, I think people rise to the occasion and get that little rush of adrenaline. So I don't think it matters as much what it is that you're doing, as long as there's some consistency so that you can see whether there is some adaptations or benefits to your training. And for me, I decided to do the 400.
That's assuming you have a pool.
Well, yeah, and now we're not doing much of anything, but yeah, I think that, you know, if it's just training, I think it becomes very mundane and onerous. So the fun is in the challenge.
Well,
There was a question that came in from Stephen just regarding, and any one of the coaches can chime in on this. Just when you're breaking your when you look at your practices, different distances depending on the abilities and things like that. Is it the same practice? Is it a different version of each group? Like I think you showed that with some of your examples, Lewis. But
Yeah, no, I do. So I do plan, basically, I write the workouts thinking what's the most I can get out of my hour and a half. So that obviously answer itself, that will be the swimmers that are swimming at a faster pace. So 4.5 up to 5 kilometers a session in 1.5 hours. And then I will just basically decompose it, just cut the sets a little bit shorter. You cannot do the exact same workout because it will take them 2 hours, and I just don't have that time. Maybe some private clubs do, but I wouldn't really do that either. I will make it proportional to their swimming ability in time. So if a swimmer that in the fastest lanes will do 4.5, the next group will do about 3.6, 3.8, so about 800 meters less. Then the swim next to it, the swim or the group lower to them will be, I don't like to say lower, just the next to them, it will be about 3 kilometers, and then the next to them will be about 2.5 kilometers. So it depends on their pace, but yeah, you can. And then again, all the practices will be very proportional to their swimming ability. The sets will be basically the same. We're tackling the same type of workout, and sometimes we'll be doing the same set. Like in those key sets, we'll just do the exact same set that everybody can manage with the rest or the pace time, and everybody's going at the same time. And that's the best type of sets because everybody's doing the exact same. It's kind of nice to watch, right?
Yeah, unless you're in the slow lane.
Doesn't matter. It's always beautiful.
Charlie 2.0. That was always the thing, Charlie 2.0, 2K. Is there any other a different approach, Mario? Similar?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Luis said, right? Depending on their abilities, I felt like, for example, my Sundays, I had the most masters to attend at 24. And due to all the protocols and regulations that the city had imposed into us for their pool space, we had to keep 5 meters apart and all that. So it was a little tricky at the beginning, but at the end, every Sunday, I pretty much had to write 2 to 3 practices depending on who was going to show up. So like if I had like the first group who did really well in their technique last week, I would give them more volume. And then I would keep working on the other group with like more technique focused drills, but still like, you know, getting their heart rates up with longer sets, but not as long as the people that, you know, can deliver me more efficient strokes and stuff like that. But yeah, 2 to 3 workouts for a whole practice. It's like hard to manage, but it worked well.
Kelly?
It's the same for me. I have the same approach that the emphasis and the intensity is the same. And I just scale back in order to, you know, have a practice that starts on time and ends on the dot. So it's all timed out so that everybody is getting a, you know, in essence, the same kind of experience in practice.
Okay. Well, we used up our time quite well tonight. I tell you, it's there was a lot of discussion going on. I believe that we'll have a survey to go out to just to give a bit of feedback on tonight, but also give us some ideas what we might be able to bring forward in the next couple months. There is a real cautious optimism that we will get back to the pool at some point in time in this season. I do believe that. Maybe it all depends on your location and your facilities and so on and so forth. But I think we should see that. I know from a Swim Ontario point of view that we look to try and do something from a competitive side of things. Probably in that May to June period, it will be delayed a bit. Obviously, we won't have, and championships won't look like what championships were, and they may not for a bit. But we will have 2 open water opportunities, and one will be in July. Hopefully, we haven't confirmed it yet, but hopefully in the Gravenhurst area, and one in Welland. And so,
Amazing.
yeah, so we're going to try and do something of that. Who knows? We might have to pivot. That's the big word of the pandemic lately, is pivoting, but more open water series things. I don't know if the pool business doesn't really come around for us, but we have to be optimistic of some sort, reasonable. But so that's what we have on that. We do have that virtual ranking piece that we do. If you do get back in the water, and maybe swim meets aren't as easily done, because I think there's a bit higher risk with swim meets, because we know swim meets is really a social thing. That's when the issues start. When you're training and faces are in the water, less chance. And swimming has been quite fortunate with no transmission. Across the country, we've not had transmission. I think that's one unique thing about our sport that is relatively safe in regard, but that can always go sideways. So there is that virtual ranking piece that we have. If you do get back into it, at least you can start looking at where other people are, or where yourself is. I'm going to leave the last word to Katie, our chair. Katie, you got anything to add?
Well, I think the main thing I want to do is just extend a very big thank you to Kelly, Mario, and Luis for sharing your expertise and giving us some better understanding of the science and thinking behind the development of a thoughtful seasonal plan and effective individual workouts. And I think we're hardwired to want to know why, and I think anybody who's spent any time with a preschooler knows that. And getting a better understanding of it has been shown to improve performance, not just in swimming, in other sports, in education, on the job. So this is really helpful, and I think we have a lot to take away with us, and also to help assist us if we end up back in the pool without the benefit of your excellent coaching for a while. So thank you for that. And then the only other thing I would mention is that we are planning for the next webinar on February 21st with a focus on biomechanics, stroke, and technique fundamentals. There'll be more information going out about that. It will feature Amber Hutchinson, who many of you know from the High Performance Center, she's a biomechanist. And I think that's it. Anything else, Steve?
No, I think you covered it. So,
It was really excellent. Thank you all.
yeah, thanks, coaches. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Dean.
Be safe.
Thank you,
Be
guys.
safe and manage yourselves as best you can. And hopefully we'll get out of this messy middle right now and get back to what we all want. And that's some sort of sense of normalcy, but definitely get back to the pools and back to seeing each other on the deck. So anyways, take care, everybody. We'll be in touch.
Care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Stay
Thanks,
safe.
guys.
Ciao, ciao.
See you, everybody.